Alright, so I was messing around with Brandor and some today and found a whole bunch of things that make it so that you can run Ty on controller quite a bit more viably. Now, I am not a controller runner by any means, so apologies if some of this does look a bit rough around the edges. I'm also having to play this in window mode, which messes with my input delay in some cases, just so that you guys can see how I set this up exactly. But usually when you are running on controller, you have this terrible turning radius when you're swimming. But fortunately, there's a way around this that I kind of just figured out when I randomly asked Brandorn to try something. So essentially, this kind of expands upon something that Plop was showing me, who is someone that likes to run the game on controller and does like a lot of glitch hunting on controller and stuff like that. But when he tried to run PC, he's kind of just like, I miss the controller. So he decided to try and figure out how he can make the controller feel a bit nicer to play with. So he figured out how to have it so that you can throw where your camera's pointing. And that's essentially by using the Steam controller remapping to pretend that this is a left click when I press that button, instead of doing it where it's throwing where my body is facing. So now I can throw to where the camera is pointing as well as where the body is facing. So that's already one nice thing that Plop found. And then he also found that you can also set a button to be like your W key on the keyboard, which allows you to do outback movements. So if I go to outback here, I can go in, and what this allows me to do is it lets me have, well, now I have my left bumper as my forward input, and then I could either do a side input on my controller to get max speed, or I've also bound it so that I get my D-pad to have like perfect 90-degree angles here. So now I'm getting my full outback movement speed on controller. Obviously, like, you're not going to be able to move your camera quite as quickly as you can with PC, but this closes the gap massively, and theoretically with like your joystick and such, you can pretty much get any combination of angles that you'll want. So for all intents and purposes, this is quite possibly the best outback movement that you can get in some scenarios. It is humanly going to be harder, and a lot of this stuff is humanly going to be harder, but it closes the gap, at least in terms of tasking ability. So I'm just going to go to Rainbow Cliffs here. And now this is the really cool part that I mentioned to Brandorn. I said, hey, why don't you try using that, left bumper for W with your swimming? And that didn't work at first, because you can see, I'm moving my stick and it's not doing anything, like it's broken. But like if I turn, if I'm swimming with my space, with my A, it works. The moment that I go to using that, though, it's like, oh, I'm in keyboard mode. I'm not going to do anything. You can see like the whole camera and everything, it flips to point to where the camera is, which is what happens when you're on keyboard and mouse. So Brandorn then went from this to using the joystick. The right joystick, the camera joystick. And that lets you swim and do all of your turning radius as if you're on keyboard and mouse. So now suddenly we're able to get that same radius on keyboard and mouse, which allows us to, for all intents and purposes, remove almost all of the outright gap that there used to be, at least when it comes to a task. I think this stuff is a lot harder, but I could not do that easily before, or do it in any sort of comparable amount of time. That is game-changing for controller runners, being able to suddenly be able to get this good turning radius. Like if I try and do this on controller how I used to do it, this is what it would look like. I have to go up here, and it's a real struggle to get up things. And then here, I'm having to manage with that giant turning radius, and I even lose my swim. It's so much harder to do. So much harder to do. I'm also having some funny stuff where it goes between this is a forward input. This is mostly just because, like, with my D-pad, mostly doing that because I want to be able to still do my forward inputs properly on the when I run keyboard and mouse, but you know, you combine that however you like. So to get all of these different things, there's just a few things that you need to do. So into your Steam controller configuration, just do Shift Tab, or for me, I've rebound it, but anyways, then go into Edit Layout and simply left mouse button, set that to W, set this to Shift. That allows you to do Doom clips easier. And then on my D-pad, I have it set so that I have stick up for my up button. That's just allowing me to do my keyboard and mouse controller movement easier, but feel free to set that otherwise. And then I have S so that I can access my down with my Doom clip sensitivity easier when I'm on controller. And then left stick, right stick, emulated for the D-pad there, allows me to use my left bumper and my D-pad so that I can get perfect 90-degree angles and get maximum benefit out of my Doomerang. So kind of what I think the best bindings are, like in terms of like changing your boomerangs and such, because that's not as important. I've just put it to being like a right joystick click, or yeah, right joystick click changes my boomerangs backwards, and then my right trigger does cycling boomerangs forwards. So pretty simple. So I can just boom, throw my boomerang, hold my shift button, and I've got access to my Doom sensitivity now. So I can just go to Final Battle now and do a Doom clip on controller. So all of this stuff is really big towards being able to just level the gap in terms of the skill ceiling. It's still obviously, like in my opinion, going to be way harder to do this stuff on controller, but the fact that it is now possible to not lose crazy amounts of time is really big. So anyways, we get up here, Doom clip. I'm taking a very conservative line. No. Bad angle, bad approach. I was kind of going between my stick and stuff like that, but if you get used to it, I am not used to running controller whatsoever, but if you get used to it, you can absolutely use that. You can bind things up nicer for Doom in particular if you want to. So yeah, like this is going between my D-pad and my bumpers, so it's a little bit awkward, but you get the idea. I also just want to talk about some of the things that are still disadvantages. So for example, wrong button. For example, things where you're collecting a thunder egg underwater and you want to do a pre-turn so that you end up facing the correct direction. That is one of the things that is still going to be a little bit slower, unfortunately. So that means that I'm going to have to... Also, I am not going to learn Land Shark on controller at the moment. Should be possible though. You can bind your walking mode. You just need to make sure that you send a keyboard input if you want it to be affected by that. Or you could just do smaller stick inputs. But anyways, so we're on this here now. Got this. Boom. So this is one of the things here, is you can't really flick your camera quite the same. So your camera is going to be facing off into the middle of nowhere still. So you're going to lose like a second or two kind of on that nest egg, on that ship egg there, for example. And like, this theoretically is possible to get the same speed as keyboard and mouse, but I was messing with it earlier and it is very difficult. Admittedly though, it was very difficult when I first started trying to do it on PC as well. So it might just be a skill issue here for me, but it is theoretically possible to get it the same as on keyboard and mouse. Just incredibly hard. I'll give it one more shot and then I'll move on to the next thing. One more that actually makes it to the spot. There we go. Roughly, like, I am not a controller player. Imagine someone that has 100 hours of practice instead of 10 minutes on that track. Let's go down to Outback Safari. As you might have guessed, toxic waste. Basically, can you get to the thing, to the first pipe as fast? Not quite. It's hardly any time lost though. Also being able to flick camera for emus and such is also another slight difference, but in the grand scheme of things, quite minute. So yeah, basically, once you get there, then it's like you lose a little bit of time on some of the shots or whatever. Obviously, accuracy is going to be more important, but it's so minuscule. So minuscule. But yeah. Anyways, hope that is informative for you and makes Ty just more enjoyable for you to play, because if you play this game on controller, the game just got an upgrade. Just got an upgrade, and you can now know that you're not at a crazy disadvantage in terms of the skill ceiling anymore. Still, in my opinion, harder, but hey, you do you. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to at me in the Discord. Brandon could probably also help talk you through some of it. I've also set up and squid with it as well. So, very exciting. Just let some of you guys just play the game that you want to play it. Play it the way you want to play it. So, yeah. Take care. Bye for now.